The great companion Abdullah Ibn Mas'ud radiallahu anhu once said, "Train yourselves upon goodness, for indeed goodness is found in that which is habitual." When we reflect upon these words, we find that it is precise and transcends any time period, as it is the nature of human beings to have habits and routines. But how can we effectively apply this statement practically in our lives today? In this episode, we continue to explore the many strategies and applications on how to cultivate good habits and kick out the bad ones, considering our daily challenges and obstacles. You're listening to the Barakah Effect podcast, the weekly podcast where we attempt to derive benefits from the Quran and the Sunnah with practical examples to insha'Allah live our best lives in this dunya and in the hereafter. Barakallahu feekum.
ولو أن أهل القرى آمنوا واتقوا لفتحنا عليهم بركات من السماء والأرض.
Bismillah, Alhamdulillah, wassalatu wassalamu ala Rasulillah wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh, brothers.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
How's everyone doing today?
Alhamdulillah, good.
Alhamdulillah, mashallah. Always great to see the brothers. And alhamdulillah, it's a full house today. Welcome back, particularly to Brother Abdul Aziz, who could make it last time. Ahlan wa sahlan. And alhamdulillah. So today we're going to continue where we left off on our discussion on breaking bad habits, quitting addictions, sins, and other unproductive stuff. And today we're going to continue particularly on the strategies to quit bad habits where we left off last week, and more importantly, quitting it in a sustainable, lasting way and developing good ones while we're at it. But before that, brothers, to refresh our memories from our discussion last week and to do a quick rundown, let's do a quick rundown on habits in general. And in the previous episode, we covered firstly on each of our experiences on our previous bad habits that we, alhamdulillah, with the tawfiq from Allah, were able to get rid of, and even some of the ones that we were even struggling with at this point of time. Although we missed Brother Aziz's points last week, so firstly, we would just like to invite Brother Abdul Aziz to share with us your perspectives from your personal experience, what you had with bad habits, and perhaps how you could overcome that in your previous experience. So, tafadal, Akhi Abdul Aziz.
Okay. Jazakallah khairan. Okay, I think breaking bad habits, right? We have, I think, I personally have a lot of bad habits I try to break. And one of the bad habits that the most challenging was stop smoking. To stop smoking.
Okay.
And yeah, alhamdulillah, I think my success of stop smoking is like a breakthrough for me to make that makes me positive that I can break other habits and create the new habits, good habits.
Right, mashallah.
Just to make the story a little bit strong, people might say that I'm just a casual smoker, right? That's why I think it's easy for me. But I was a casual smoker during school days. I think I started smoke casually, I think when I was 16 or 17.
You and me both, same.
Yeah. Bad companions. Huh? But then I became heavy during universities and heavier when I start working.
So it's sort of developed a bit further and further as you go along when you went along in your life. So you sort of
yes
found yourself becoming a habit that becoming stronger and stronger, something like this.
Plus you're not living with your parents, right?
Okay.
And my first try to stop smoking were in 2010, my last year in university. During my last year, I start thinking about life, right? About life as an adult. So, trying to be a good person, trying to be an adult per se.
Is it sense of realization, yeah? Adulthood.
smoking might not good for financial. Maybe it's maybe I'm going to have a family. Even though I'm a smoker, I just when I see a father smokes in front of their children, it's like, you have this sense of hate looking at that thing, right?
Yep.
Right. It just doesn't feel right, yeah?
Yeah.
So even as a smoker, we used to feel like that, right? Because I
Yes.
was a smoker too. So that's what I used to think, like, hey, come on, not in front of your kid, man. Like,
Yeah.
True. Because I guess each and every one of us, even when if we were smoking or not, we know that in the back of our minds that smoking is really bad, right, for the health. So
I think most of
especially for the kids.
bad habits are like they know it's not good, but
yeah,
I think it's hard to. So my first 3 attempts failed. I think it's 2010, 2011. Even after I graduated, it's still hard for me. So I think my first 3 attempts, I think I failed because I tried to stop without any knowledge, no information about how to stop smoking. I thought I was just like people. I can just stop like that, right?
Okay.
Cold turkey.
People say, cold turkey. Yes.
But I think the big why was not that clear or not so big. Because I was stopped smoking because people said it's not good, right? It's for health and for money. And if I think about it, all of this why was not good enough.
Right. It's not strong enough.
Yeah, it's not strong enough. What do I care about people thinking, right? And I was young, I'm still healthy. So just continue smoking. And to say have money problem, I think that time I don't have, I'm not married yet. So the big why is not that strong. So things changed after I started to religiously, not seriously, but gradually lah, and meet good people. And what I noticed that most good people who practice the deen don't smoke, right? Most, I'm not saying all, but most. And I didn't know that smoking was haram. That time.
Oh, you didn't know? Oh,
yes, I didn't know. Yeah, I always thought that it is makruh. That's what my smoking ustaz said.
Right. Some people just try to justify that, right?
Yeah. Even ustaz at my school was smoking.
So subhanallah.
Okay.
I started to learn the tips and tricks how to smoke, and I try because the why now is about because it's haram, right? So what's the difference that with drinking alcohol if it's haram? So
correct. It's displeasing to Allah, yeah, basically. So
the I think my challenges was for the first 2 months I had a very bad headache, migraine. It was very challenging. It was very how I would say, it's hard for me. I think for other people it's easy. I need to get the nicotine tablets,
right.
But I use it once lah, because I try not to take any substitute for that.
That's one thing that got me thinking about habits, right? For example, in your example, in regards to smoking, sometimes there is an element of addiction to it, right? Because people are addicted
Yes.
to the nicotine and whatnot. But and most times, right, it's actually to do with habits, because it's such a habitual thing that people, after they, when they go on their free time, the first thing that they reach out is the cigarette. When they have some idle time, when they after their meal, for example, the first thing they reach out. Yeah, it's like an instant gratification. But more importantly, it's something that they are used to doing. And therefore, when someone wants to quit, it's much difficult because it's something to do with a norm that they're used to, because they have built that habit throughout the years. And suddenly going without that habit, means that, oh, something weird going on here,
Yeah.
It doesn't feel right. So that makes people fall into the habit back easily. So that's
It's
the thing about habits, right?
It's like
Yeah.
writing with your left hand.
Something like that.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
There are a lot of things that we do that we don't realize how difficult it is to change. So, for example, even something simple like if you're used to wearing your watch on your right hand, try just for one day wear it on your left hand. I tried it, by the way, just to prepare for this episode. I couldn't get used to it, man.
Experiment, huh?
Yeah, I couldn't get used to it. I couldn't even wear it properly. Like what? Oh, then to look at the time, oh, this is weird, man.
This feels awkward, right, on the hand, yeah.
Yeah, it does. So even things like that, it's difficult. So it's something that's ingrained in our behavior, like something like smoking, for example. For like in my smoking days, like smoking was tied to like after every meal, it's a must do, like, and then suddenly yeah, it is the dessert. So suddenly
like a
there's
ritual.
yeah, it is a ritual. So suddenly like the ritual's gone. Like, okay. Now what? Like,
Subhanallah.
Yeah.
But the thing, yeah,
it's getting worse if the habit have a impact in your body, right? Give you an addiction.
Yeah,
It's a
exactly.
habit and plus the addiction.
yeah,
Exactly.
Drug addiction. Yeah.
And also in regards to habits, in bad habits, right? Sometimes, for example, if we have not much knowledge about how smoking is haram or not, perhaps we don't know that we are falling into sin. But it's important to realize what the bad habits are, because there was this one point from our previous discussion that we expanded about. This is hadith from Sunan Ibn Majah, which is a Hasan hadith, where Rasulullah SAW mentioned that whenever a believer commits a sin, a black spot appears on his heart. And if he repents, he gives up and seeks forgiveness, the heart will be polished. And if the sin increases, the black spot increases. And that is the ran that Allah mentioned in his book, which is from Surah Al-Mutaffifin. Rana kallabal rana ala kulubihim makalu yaksibun, right?
Come on.
Yeah. So that's one thing that we have to be mindful of. We might not even realize that we are doing something very detrimental to our akhirah, and that's an angle of habits, that why we should particularly pay attention to bad habits, and why is it important to get rid of these bad habits. Yeah.
Yeah. Also, just a bit about habits, Reza. Just to set the atmosphere straight here, we are speaking about habits in a way that might give the impression that it's a bad thing. But in my recent reading, just to remind us that habits can be a great thing, and it's actually a huge mercy from Allah. This is actually something that I heard from a podcast from one of our favorite channels, Al Madrasatu Al Umariyah, talking about habits. And what Brother Shahid said in that episode was that the way that Allah created us as creatures of habits, he says that I believe that it's a huge mercy from Allah. And that's what enables us to perform good deeds consistently and stay on the path of istiqamah. Because if we didn't have this capability, every time we want to wake up for Fajr, every time we want to fast in Ramadan, it becomes very difficult, very painful. But because you've been doing it in a routine basis, right? It gets very easy after time goes by, and that's what frees up your mind to improve more and more and more. So it's kind of like a lot of things that we do in our day-to-day lives. We don't realize that it's the habits that make it easy for us. But when a third party looks at how you've been doing it, they think that this is impossible. So very simple things, right? Like we pray 5 times a day. Now for the non-Muslim, they're like, what are you talking about, man? I can't even go to church once a week. You guys pray 5 times a day? How is this achievable, right? Like you waking up for Fajr before the sun comes up, like you do this every single day, every day? Yani, right? When days off, annually, no, they cannot brain that, right?
Yeah.
And then even things like fasting in Ramadan. I think you see this every Ramadan, right? Like you see in non-Muslim videos, they'll say things like, I tried fasting Ramadan for 1 day. This is what happened. Right? You see that stuff online,
exactly.
right?
Yeah,
I tried fasting 2 days, see what happens. And then they're like, and then the experience they have, and then you compare it to what Muslims, we do that like the whole month, every year, billions of Muslims, yeah? So, I mean, for us, it's like, okay, it can be difficult at first, but it's kind of like, yeah, we do it. I mean, it's not really a big deal. And so, subhanAllah, if you think about it, right, like even the idea about going to work, I used to think that it was crazy. I could not imagine myself like waking up after Fajr, like going to the office at 8 a.m., working 8 hours a day, every single day, going through the jam. And then I remember like this was my mindset going into internship. Like, I can't do this, man. This is crazy. And then Qadar Allah, my first job, every day starts at 7:30. Oh, okay.
Mashallah.
And then suddenly you're like, oh, okay, like you can do it, you know, like you kind of get used to it, and then it's not that painful as day one or week one, you know, it kind of, your brain sort of adjusts to it, and sort of that's the way things go. And you know, if you have this, if you're understanding about habits, right, how people build on one after the other, right, when we understand the principles of habits, this is how we can appreciate how people achieve these great things, right? What seems to us as impossible or sometimes as inhuman, like it's all made possible because of habits. For example, right, you hear stories like how, you know, these gym guys like Dwayne Johnson, The Rock, like he works out like what 5 to 7. No, wait, let me see.
Yeah, he has his own routine, right? The regime that he puts on, that he, you know, does it every day.
Yep.
From certain time.
He wakes up at 3, is it?
Yeah, 4 a.m.
He wakes up at
3 or 4 a.m. Yeah. And he eats like meals every 2 hours. Then he works out 6 days a week, 3 to 4 hours per day. Like, wait, what? But to him, it's like, yeah,
it's like normal, man.
Yeah. And I read.
You know what?
Yeah.
You know what? It just occurred to me that these people, the non-Muslims who are doing this, right? It's as if they have taken this lifestyle as their religion, and that is why, you know, I remember Ibn Taymiyyah, he said the religion, he said, Islam is habitual obedience. He said that. So the deen itself is habitual. It's designed that way by Allah, so that we when we comply to the sets of rules that Allah Subhanahu wa Taala has made us do, right? We become the believer that we want, and we become more disciplined, and we become, you know, subhanallah. It's just, you know, it all clicks.
That one worth to be written in gold, eh?
Yeah, mashallah. And so that's how we can understand, for example, when we read stories about the Salaf, right? For example, I remember reading the biography of Imam Ahmad bin Hanbal. He used to pray 200 raka'ah per day, every day. And then when he was sick towards the end of his life, he couldn't pray as much, so he prayed a lot less, which is only 100 raka'ah per day. Like, okay. So how did he do that? But to him, it's like a natural thing, right? And so you will read other things like the Salaf, how they used to recite so much Quran per day. Like for example, Al-Aswad, yani Yazid bin An-Nakhai, he used to recite the Quran like in Ramadan every 2 nights, complete Quran. And outside of Ramadan, he would complete every 6 nights. That means every single day, 5 juz. Now, to them, it's like, this is just like a normal routine. Like, there's nothing particularly outstanding about it, but that's what they used to do. Imam al-Nawawi, for example, used to go to 13 classes per day, 1-3, yeah? Do we even go to like 3 classes per week? And subhanallah.
Subhanallah.
And by the way, even on a personal note, right, I'm even how Amir attends his online classes every week, I'm amazed at that. Like, whoa, this is true. But to him, right, to Amir, you're probably like, that's a thing. I mean, that's pretty normal, right? Like, you know?
Yeah.
So why is this the case? Because of habits. You build it little bit by little bit by little bit, and you know when you do these things, right? Like so like what Shami is saying, as a believer, when you do these sunnah things one by one, you pile it up, and your baseline keeps on going higher and higher. People outside will look at you and be asking like, "How do you do it? Like, how is this possible?" They're like, "I don't know. I just do it." And all of this is made possible through the formation of habits. So it's a huge mercy from Allah from that angle. But at the same time, if you're not intentional in your habits, it can also equally lead you to very destructive habits, the opposite direction as well. One bad habit can lead up to another one, and completely go off the rails. And you know, subhanAllah, this is what we want to be careful about. So that's why it's, for many of us, it's our bad habits that hold us back from becoming Muslims, from becoming really, really good practicing Muslims. So this is why we want to talk about this, so that we can avoid that, so that we can build on that good habits. So people talk about purification of the heart, right? So which one should come first? So there was a question asked to Ibn Taymiyyah: should you make istighfar or should you say tasbih? Which one is better? So he gave a principle. He says, well, to the clothes that are dirty, it's better to clean the stains before you add perfume to it. So you want to start with removing the bad habits first, right? And then build the good habits. But of course, you can do it parallel. We talk a bit about that. So yeah, just to try to set the scene about that.
I'd like to add something about that point, Brother Faisal. It's beautiful point. Something I heard over at one of the videos by the Asatidha in Amau, Al-Madrasatul Umariyah. Yeah. So about istighfar and tasbih, right? These are the two, if we look carefully, right? These two, istighfar and tasbih, they act as like the ilaj or the medicine to the two diseases of the heart. Okay, basically, essentially, we can divide the diseases of the heart into two types. One is what we call the shubha, and the other one is called shahwa. Shubha is like you confused about something. You're not clear about whether this is true or this is false, right? And this is usually happens to people who they don't know if this is shirk or this is tawheed or stuff like that. And shahwa is our our nafs, like what we want, what the things that we desire, like some people desire games, and some desire women and stuff like that. So it's interesting that when Ibn Taymiyyah said that when your clothes is dirty, right, it's as if you're saying that you have sins, you have the shahwa of your heart it overcomes your heart, your emotions. So you need to clean it up by saying the istighfar. And as for the tasbih, is because when we look at tasbih means glorifying Allah, or to cleanse Allah from all the things that from all the
imperfections,
the imperfections from the falsehood, right? So we're cleaning it. So we're sort of getting rid of all the impurities, so that we see Allah as the one Allah, Tawheed. So I don't know. It's just a good point, I think, to hopefully you guys understand what I'm trying to say here, inshallah.
Mashallah, I think that's a really nice point. Yeah, this shubhat and shahwat. Because when you talk about sins, the origin of sins is these two axes. These two elements. Your shubhat, which is coming like from the mind, and any shortcomings from your which is due from your ignorance, and shahwat, which is the shortcomings or exaggeration of your nafs or your desires. Okay. And this shubhat and shahwat, they are drivers, they are enablers that from these two shahwat and shubhat become sin. And there are your internal nafs as well as the whispers of shaitan. So when you say you try to overcome bad habits or whatsoever, so in essence, actually, what you are trying to do is actually you are trying to put barriers, and you want to put some recovery measures between all these things. Yeah. So imagine if I put in like a Swiss cheese model, or in a bow tie diagram. So on your left you have inherent threat that's always in you. So as human beings, you have ignorance and you have desires. You cannot get rid of this. Yeah. And if you don't treat well enough, yeah, your ignorance will develop into shubhat, and your desires will develop into shahwat. So you have to put barriers for this to become, from one to become the next thing. And if for whatever reason it happens, qadar Allah, you now have the shubhat and shahwat issues. Yeah? So now what you need to do is you need to put some recovery measures, some mitigations to prevent your shahwat and shubhat from further manifesting itself into actions of sin. So when you have this in mind, so this is like your game plan. Yeah. So it's all overcoming bad habits, eliminating your bad habits, is just putting those barriers, the heart barriers, physical barriers, internal barriers, and the recovery measures, if any of those things ever happens. Yeah, in a nutshell.
Mashallah. Interesting. That's basically the root causes of all the sins, right? The shubhat and shahwat. And it reminds me of the legal maxim in our religion is sad ad-dhara'i, blocking the means, right? Dhara'i, yeah.
Yep.
So that's one principle in our religion, that before we even approach or even think about that particular bad habit or particular sin, we block it off from the means, we cut it off from the roots. So that's one, mashallah, is a great thing in our religion, that we just eliminate the threat before it comes to us, right? So mashallah.
Yeah, also just for the benefit of our listeners, when you talk about shubha and shahawat, actually this is essentially what we ask for in Al-Fatiha. When we ask ihdinas siratal mustaqim, guide us to the straight path. So what is the straight path? Siratal ladhina an'amta alayhim, the path of you who you give blessings to. Ghairil maghdubi alayhim, So not the path of those who earned your wrath, who earned the wrath of Allah, and then those who are ad-dallin, those who gone astray. The path of those who earn the wrath of Allah are those who followed their desires, who know something is wrong and that they commit to it. So actually, you're seeking refuge from this, the shahawat. Shahawat,
yes,
right?
shahwat, yes.
Right. And ad-dallin are those who act
Desires follow.
not desires.
No.
Yeah.
I think is it,
Doubts.
Corruption.
yeah.
Yeah, dallin are doubts. So the first
yeah,
one are
yes,
desires, the other one is doubt. So actually, that's what we're asking Allah. We're asking Allah for refuge with every single salah.
Yep.
So I think this is just a simple benefit point that I want listeners and for us to take home as well, is that actually we're asking Allah to protect us from the evil consequences of these things because they are inherent within us. This is something that as human beings, we have desires, we have doubts. So it's about how can we discipline ourselves and retrain ourselves to protect ourselves from the consequences of those things.
Yeah.
And
MashaAllah.
for whatever reason, let's say you have already indulged yourself in sin, yeah? It's not for you to say, okay, you got to react. It's not something like, okay, I have done it, so what? You have to react.
Yeah.
Because the danger is there, because if you have a sin, and if you leave it untreated, it becomes a habit, a bad habit, not a good habit, a bad habit. And if you don't treat that bad habit, what it becomes? It becomes addiction. And what's worse in addiction? The worst thing that can happen in addiction is when you actually do that addiction without feeling any pleasure inside it. But you just do it just because of it's an indispensable part of living. It's like as if
it becomes part of you.
that's right. You watch something because it's like drinking or sleeping to you. So that's really sad.
second
That's
nature.
really sad for you. For that
The second
whoever.
nature.
Yeah. That's right.
Right.
It's like cursing, right?
Yeah. That's
it's like
something
the
that
norm.
in
Very
some
norm now.
circles or some people's attitudes or demeanor, this is a norm for some people. But then when you think about it, it's very it's not a good habit to have, isn't it? And it's
You can find someone
displeasurable
is
to Allah.
very good in character, right? You can find someone is good in character, right? But what comes out of their mouths, they just cursing. Good things also cursing. Bad things also they curse. Oh Allah, that's a bad habit.
Yeah, actually, Akhi, Aziz reminded me on somebody, a brother shared with me recently. Like he know of somebody who's a student of knowledge, who's a da'i, but when he spent time with this famous individual, he noticed that he curses a lot. And so he was a bit shocked, like what's going on? So he immediately felt like a bit of a repulsion against him, you know. But then we have to remind ourselves that every one of us has struggles, you know, and probably that's his struggle. And maybe that person is trying to quit, but that person falls into it because it's done too habitually. So it's kind of difficult. On one hand, you admit that thing is wrong, is something that it's not appropriate for, especially for a person of that stature, right? But on the other hand, that person is a human being. Like, for example, what we're speaking about, I mean, we are trying to practice Islam, but also maybe in the same time, we are struggling with trying to quit smoking. We are struggling with this, and sometimes we relapse again. So it's kind of important for us to kind of just put it on a professional level, yeah? Like this wala wal bara, right? So we don't hate the person, we hate the sin. We hate the habit, not the person. We're not labeling the person as a sinner, fasik, and all these things, right?
Yeah.
MashaAllah.
And also like nature of sins, yeah. It grows, yeah. It's not static, it's not stagnant. So meaning it comes from shubhat and shahwat comes from a thought, yeah. From a thought, it develops into an idea, yeah. And from an idea, it develops into an action plan. So you haven't do it, but you got A to Z plan right here in your head. I'm gonna do A, B. I got everything, all the line out plan. Yeah. And then it goes to the next stage, which you have determination. Now you have the plan and you have the will, and then the fourth thing is the execution. And Ibn Qayyim mentioned that every time you delay in trying to overcome each step, it becomes harder. So overcome it at the thought stage is much easier compared for you to overcome it at the action stage or at the action plan stage.
Yeah.
Because now the shahwat has thickened, the plot has thickened, and you need more effort for you to suppress it. Yeah.
Subhanallah, mashallah.
It's like first time to do anything, right? At first you are scared, but if you have done it first time and the second time is easier.
Yeah.
You know what that shows? That shows that doing a sin, doing a bad deed, it's actually harder than doing good deeds, because all this thought process, it consumes your energy, it consumes your time, right? Sometimes you find yourself, just sitting down thinking, and then you're just tired, from thinking about these things, right? So it's actually much easier because Allah Subhanahu wa Taala, He gave us the fitrah. Our nature is to be our nature is to be good, not bad, not the other way. Because I believe in the other religious tradition, they said that we come with some sort of a like this inherent sin, right? But Islam, no. Islam, we are like a clean clean piece of paper. We come on earth. We have this very natural, very good. How do you say this?
Natural disposition.
Natural disposition, yeah, the fitrah. So I think it's a very good thing that the Brother Ami mentioned that. It shows that how difficult it is to actually do a sin.
That's what Ibn Taymiyyah mentioned once. He quoted a Salaf. He mentioned the Salaf is that to do good deeds. Yeah, this is Salaf. He quoted from Salaf. Anyone can perform good deeds. Anybody. However, only the person of sincerity can abandon sin. So shows to abandon sin is a different level, than to perform pious deeds. It's more difficult.
Inshallah.
Yeah, but speaking about like habits, right, as what Aziz is saying. So yeah, the first time you're doing it's very difficult. Like I think we can relate, right? The first time you try that cigarette during school time, like you have so much doubts, right? And then after the first one, you're like, it wasn't so hard. I mean, I can do it tomorrow. But so actually the same thing happens for good deeds as well. So I think we're gonna balance this. So even like the first time you're gonna exercise, the first time you're gonna work out, you're gonna hate it, man. You're gonna it's gonna sore, and you're gonna have you're not gonna like it. And sometimes good deeds are also like that. So for example, for the person who has not been praying for the past few years, that first prayer, oh man, it's tough, man. It's so difficult. Like if you have not been praying tahajjud at all, that first time you're gonna wake up, oh man, it's tough. But after you try after again and you're determined to do it again, the next time gets a bit easier. So, yesterday was, but I kind of know how to feel now, so I'll do it again. That's why you have some statements of the Salaf. I can't remember the name, but it says that I struggled to pray Salah for 20 years. The first 10 years, I didn't like it. I was very uncomfortable with it. But the next 10 years, I got used to it. Like it becomes a habit to me now. So it's kind of like it happens for every deed. The first one, it's sort of like a curve. Like in the beginning, the ease of doing it, it's really low, and the more repetitions you do, the higher it gets. But if you don't repeat it so much, you actually go a bit further back. You can use this to your advantage, for bad deeds. So that means if you have stopped repeating the bad deeds, eventually the ease to do it gets less and less. The compulsion to do it again gets reduced. So that's one way to do it, to put some distance between you and that bad deed. So yeah, that's some of the strategies which I'll touch on later. But yeah, these are some of the general concepts about it.
Yeah. Now that we know there's such a vast, understanding behind habits and why it's important to get rid of our bad habits and inculcate good habits. But the question remains, right, for common people like us, for laymen like us, how do we know any strategies that are easy to do and are sustainable for the long run, that we want to go on this path to get rid of our bad habits and inculcate, inshallah, good habits? So let's move on to the strategies now. If any of the brothers would like to expand on any meaningful strategies that they've picked up from their personal experience or from research, that how can we, let's say, get rid of our bad habits in a sustainable way, in a good way, in a way that is lasting, inshallah.
Can I start, brothers?
Sure.
Okay.
Tafaddal, akhi.
I think first of all, our scholars put so many techniques, strategies, tactics to overcome bad habits, sins. And for one, I just quote Ibn Qayyim from only 2 books. He put like almost 70 action plans that we can do. But however, I want to take some of the plans which are related to a technique which is quite common, quite famous now, called mindfulness. So there was this researcher named Andy Marlin. So he came up with this urge surfing technique. So
it's called urge surfing?
Urge, like urge. Right. You have in
urge.
Surf.
Surfing the urge.
Surfing the urge, yeah.
Okay.
So because you say like your urge is like a wave, yeah? it has its peak, and then after the peak, it will just dies off. Yeah.
Yeah.
So when that urge actually comes to you, so in essence, it's about when the urge actually comes to you, when you have that urge, you take a pause, you take a step back, and you actually reassess every single thing. You reassess especially the consequence, the long term, short term. What does this sin go? What does this habit, this addiction does to you in the long run, in the short run? It's just about occupying your mind to think of the consequence of that addiction, because the nature of addiction, the nature of urge, that it will eventually dies off. It has its peak,
Right.
and after some time, it will just dies off. So it can die off from being subdued after a long time, and you can also overcome it by rational thinking. So
basically talking yourself out of it.
That's right, talking yourself out of it. Buying time, talk yourself out of it. Yeah.
It's like positive procrastination.
That's
Procrastinating.
you're
It
right.
is.
It is.
Right.
It is. It's just that, like, what I like to like the type of questions that you can ask yourself. I think a lot of scholars put a lot of angles to what actually you can question yourself when you are face to face with your shahwat, with your shubhat. You're about to take that step and fall down that cliff of sin.
I mean, I want to use that same principle. We are guilty of this, yeah? When we want to do good deeds, we always procrastinate by giving all sorts of excuse. I want to memorize Quran, but my tajweed is not so good. I don't have a teacher. I don't have time. I don't know how to do it. And then we end up overthinking it and we don't even start. Okay, we do that anyway for our good deeds, right? So adopt that. And like if tahajjud, right? I want to wake up for tahajjud, but I need like my 6 hours of beauty sleep. And then, I finish late at night. We create all sorts of mental barriers and we never even start, right? And then we say like, but next week, inshallah, I'll be okay. Like, what are you talking about, So why don't you do that same thing with bad deeds? Like, so when you want to, you have, or your habits that you're doing, right? Why don't you overthink it? Like, if I do this, it kind of looks a bit stupid and kind of like this. And then if I see somebody else doing it, I kind of like look at him in a not so nice way. So why am I doing this to myself? I'll do this next week. So you kind of overthink the bad deeds. Like you kind of like what Amir is saying. Like you overbloat how bad it is, even though it looks like minor. You're trying to say you're trying to quit a social media habit, right? Like you're browsing. Just take your stuff back, like that mindfulness thing, right? And then you say that I'm looking at this guy who's trying to become a better Muslim, and he's doing this all day. Is that something that I want to look up to? Is that a man that I want my son to look up to? Now you're thinking like, oh, wait a minute. I gotta catch myself now, right? So just doing this overthinking thing, that's a practical way of doing it.
And also it reminds me also another aspect of our religion, which is knowing that Allah is always watching you, which is the concept of, in Islam, it's called muraqabah. So knowing that Allah is always looking at you, looking at your every action, even knowing all that you are thinking about. I think this can be a very powerful thing that can prevent us from going through sin. Because, for example, if you find your shahwat very strong to trying to commit a certain sin, for example, and suddenly you remember that this particular thing that you were about to do, Allah doesn't like this action, and that Allah is always watching you, and therefore that becomes a very effective barrier, I would say, that starts from within your heart, which is like something to do with mindfulness that Brother Amir mentioned, that when you stop and pause and think of what the consequences are of your actions that you're going to do, the consequences in the akhirah, that you will be answerable to Allah for every single action that we do in this world, right? That I think this is a very strong sense of why you wanna not do that particular bad habit. So perhaps we can start with that if we find it difficult to refrain from doing any of these bad habits. So remember the concept of muraqabah, knowing that Allah is always watching you. And actually, muraqabah is actually one step lower than the ihsan, right? Ihsan is two parts. One is mujahadah, and if I'm not mistaken, is it correct, brothers?
Yep. Yeah.
Mujahadah and muraqabah, right? Mushahadah, sorry. Mushahadah and muraqabah. So mushahadah is seeing, doing something that as if you are seeing Allah, right?
Yeah.
And muraqabah is if you don't, if you cannot feel that you you're seeing Allah, know that Allah is always watching you. So that's something, a concept that we can try to implement in our lives to perhaps have a strong sense of why not to do a particular deed.
Yeah.
Can I add something there?
These are just the points that people might think of when they're doing this positive procrastination. This right? These are some of the points that you can do. Inshallah.
Yeah. Actually, this reminds me of an ayah of the Quran in Surah Al-Imran, where Allah speaks about the people of taqwa, right? And then He describes وَالَّذِينَ إِذَا فَعَلُوا فَاحِشَةً أَوْ ظَلَمُوا أَنفُسَهُم ذَكَرُوا اللَّهَ فَاسْتَغْفَرُوا لِذُنُوبِهِم. Those who, when they want to do something wrong, they commit a sin. That means they do commit sins. I mean, we all as human beings, we are susceptible to that. But immediately they remember Allah, and then they ask istighfar. Now here's the thing, right? About muraqabah, right? Sometimes the thought does cross our mind, but the bad habit that we have is we always brush it away. Oh, Allah's watching us. And I don't want to think about that. So when you do that multiple times, that becomes a bad habit. So that's what you want to train yourself. Like you want to catch yourself. Oh, I shouldn't ignore. Like I should do what is in Surah Al-Imran. Astaghfirullah. Like just try to practice that. It's not easy. Nobody's saying that quitting bad habits is easy, but and even building this good habit, it's actually doing both. Yeah. So it's destroying the bad habit of ignoring the fact that Allah is watching you, and it's building the good habit of istighfar. Right. So this is just
and in the same ayah, the letter fa, fastaghfirullah, it means immediately. Not like you're not procrastinating to make istighfar to Allah, but you do it immediately. When you catch yourself doing a sin,
in that moment,
in the spur of the moment, just astaghfirullah. What am I doing? Yeah.
Sometimes you're constantly doing bad deeds. Bad habits in our discussion, point of discussion. And you know Allah is looking at you, and sometimes you do not balance the hope and fear of Allah. Maybe you say, okay, Allah is always forgiving. He's going to forgive me. He's going to keep on forgiving me. But you keep on watching or keep on doing, smoking, whatsoever. But then your daughter comes into the room, your wife steps into the room, your parents steps in the room. You quickly switch off the screen. Because you fear you're being caught by someone else. Because you know what you're doing is filth. You know the kind of filth that you're indulging yourself, and you don't want anybody to know about it. But think of it: you stop not because you fear Allah, but you stop because you fear other people is actually gonna caught you with that. So fear is only the best fear for Allah. It's an ibadah of the heart. And it has to be for Allah. That's a danger. Say in this situation that you might fall into shirk, because now your fear is that stops you from anything is haram is no longer for Allah, but for something else. So that's the danger. Yeah. So
the best sense of why, therefore, should be for Allah. Yeah, that's something that we can always remind ourselves on, the intentions and why we are doing things for Allah.
Exactly, and for that why, like imagine when we were in school back then. Yeah, sometimes we don't do bad habits. Yeah, we don't play by the drain. We don't play in the mud. Yeah. Why? Because our mother tells us not to do it. Because we love our mom. Why we avoid? Why we do our homework? Because our dad tells us you got to do your homework, son. Or our teachers, someone who we look highly upon them, tells us to do something good, and we do it. So think of it. We are doing it. We're doing something, and we are not doing something because of our love for our parents, or because we look highly upon them. Then we do it. And now, shouldn't we have the same love, the higher love and higher glorification for Allah? Shouldn't? So meaning, if you don't do it, if you're sinning, you're falling into this, meaning there's some deficiency in your love for Allah and the way you glorify Allah. Because if you really glorify someone, if you really highly upon someone, you follow what he tells you. If the king tells you to do something, eat spaghetti for the whole week, you do it. Allah telling you to stay away from sin. If you're not doing it, there's something in terms of how you glorify Allah, and also there's laxity in your love for Allah. Yeah, there's an angle to that. Yeah,
and the way to cultivate it is basically seeking knowledge, right? Seeking knowledge, knowing Allah, and therefore you can build that sense of iman, and from there on you will develop that fear of Allah in the right way.
Yeah,
yes,
that's why.
Shami?
Sorry, just want to add quickly to what Brother Amir said. That's why the scholar Ibn Taymiyyah, he said, things can be loved from one perspective and disliked from another. But nothing can be loved for every aspect of its being except Allah alone. Therefore, al-uluhiyah, or the worship and devotion to Allah, is not befitting for anyone but Him only. Because had there been gods within the heavens and the earth besides Allah, they both would have been ruined. So he said the praiseworthy form of mahabbah, the praiseworthy form of love or desire or intention, this thing that we want to engage in, persistently engage in, is the praiseworthy form of it is love that brings a benefit to the one who possesses it, and the benefit is happiness in the dunya and the akhirah. The harmful form of mahabbah is, or love is, that earns the one who possesses it harm and misery. Right? So of course no one would choose to love someone as something that is harmful. But due to the ignorance and maybe self-oppressive natures of a person, right? Their souls lead them to either what is destructive and non-beneficial. So they lead them to what they love and desire, not knowing whether that thing is beneficial or harmful. So that's why knowledge, seeking knowledge again, is very important for us. And be within the circle, be within a circle of friends that remind you of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Because if you're alone, then the shaitan will always come and attack you. And there are many hadith of this. And one hadith we can share inshallah is from Musnad Ahmad, where the Prophet ﷺ he narrated this from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. He said, Qala Iblis. So Iblis la'natullah alayh. He said, Ya Rab, oh my Lord, by your honor, I will not stop causing your slaves to go into error as long as their souls are in their bodies, he said. So what did Allah say? Allah says something profound. He said something similar, but he said, by my honor and my greatness, I will not stop forgiving them as long as they continue to seek my forgiveness. Subhanallah. So there's a mirror between that the conversation, right? So that just shows that never when we try to quit bad habits, inshallah, it's going to be difficult. No one says it's going to be easy, right? No one ever say it was easy. It's difficult, as like the brothers shared, subhanallah, I think it take them years, even a decade even to get them out from these bad habits, right? But no matter how difficult the habit that we are trying to escape is, never give up on the comforting mercy of Allah. Allah Azza wa Jal, he said, keep on trying, because Allah Azza wa Jal, he said, وَلَا تَيْأَسُوا مِنْ رَوْحِ اللَّهِ إِنَّهُ لَا يَيْأَسُ مِنْ رَوْحِ اللَّهِ إِلَّا الْقَوْمِ الْكَافِرُونَ. And despair not from the relief from Allah, because indeed no one despairs from the relief of Allah except the disbelieving people. So there's an interesting point here. Why does the disbelieving people, why do they despair from Allah? Can anyone maybe have an answer or something? Why do the disbelieving people they despair from the mercy of Allah?
Ignorance from Allah about the mercy of Allah.
Yes, that's correct also, but I'll add something to that, because it is as if they're saying to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, Ya Allah, you don't know what I'm going through. You don't know what I'm going through, right? But here's the thing, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he created us and he created the actions, but it is us who choose, to follow these actions, whether good or bad, right? And Allah knows, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, he said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is closer to us than our jugular veins. So he knows us, but you're saying that, Ya Allah, you don't know what I'm going through. So, you're not having mercy upon me. So it's as if they're saying this, So, na'udhu billahi min dhalik. No, this is not befitting to be said to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So have mercy in Allah and seek Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala's help. These are just general advice, for people who try to, because dua is very important, and ask him to to help you to get away from this bad habit, inshallah.
Can I add something on the point of Allah's mercy?
I think these are really good points, but I want to share, I find this behavioral model very, very useful to apply in our practical lives, because the reality is when we speak about bad habits, there may be bad habits which are not necessarily haram. So what the brothers are speaking about now are things which are clearly haram, but also you have things which on the surface, they seem relatively harmless, right? Maybe the bad habits could be scrolling social media, spending hours on YouTube, What else? Watching football or watching, drowning yourself in doom scrolling of news. These are all bad habits, or eating junk food every day. It's halal.
Watching product review.
Yeah, watching product reviews.
Excessively, is it? Excessively.
Yeah. So let's try to break it down so that, because I find this behavioral model useful for those habits and also the religious stuff as well. So this is called the Fogg behavioral model. It's from a book called Tiny Habits by B.J. Fogg, the author of B.J. Fogg. So I'll try to project the graph on the video, inshallah. So basically, imagine our behaviors, our actions are like this graph, whereby the x-axis is the ability, how easy it is to do, and how difficult and how easy. So the bigger the ability, that means so it goes up the axis, and the other axis is the motivation.
Right.
Okay, so you have motivation and ability, and you have this habit line, they call it. So whenever a certain prompt or a trigger happens, if it's above the habit line, then you will do it. So for example, if the motivation is high and it's easy to do, you'll do it. Right?
Okay.
So if the motivation low and the ability to do it, that means it's difficult for you, you won't do it. So you can take two extremes to this. So if you find very high motivation, but it's difficult for you to do, you won't do it. And the other way around, if it's very easy to do, but you're not really motivated to do it, you won't really do it also. So if you want to like dissect the habits that you have, for example, try to look at this slider now and just frame it. That's an easy way of looking at it. If you want to quit bad habits, can you make it difficult or can you reduce the motivation?
So these are two things that pay attention to.
Yeah, that's right.
Motivation
so
and difficulty.
if we want to summarize all that we were speaking about, it basically comes to these two things. Like if you want to increase in doing a good habit, means you increase the motivation and you make it easy. And right now, our topic is to make it difficult. So what the brothers are saying right now, like for example, what Shahmi, Amir, Reza, what you're summarizing about the habits of the impacts of sins and about understanding about this whole knowledge thing, what you're doing is you're decreasing the motivation of that bad habit. So eventually you're going to hate it so much that I don't want to do it anymore, Yep. So that's the internal driver now. You want to make it like really, really despicable now. You realize you catch yourself doing it. And this is for the religious stuff. But for very neutral stuff, right? Like when we speak about, for example, doom scrolling and watching football, all these things, right? Now, when you the more knowledge you seek as well.
Can you remind us what doom scrolling is again?
Right. Doom scrolling is this habit whereby you keep scrolling bad news, which is happening a lot in COVID, right? So you read about COVID and you read about the effects of vaccines, you read about death rates, you read about the government conspiracies, and oh my God,
COVID conspiracies, vaccines.
So reading news by itself, it's not haram, but then you keep on doing it, it leads to a lot of negative things. So actually, the more you seek knowledge, the more you understand the impacts of these things. And I think we spoke about this in the episode about caring for mental health, right? About this thing about streaming shows, right? It decreases your willpower to do negative things. And when you know these things, right, even without looking at the religious aspects, you start to realize that it's not a good habit, man. So it decreases your motivation. But another strategy is to make it difficult now. So there are ways that you can make things difficult. So maybe I won't spend too much time talking about this, but for example, I have this habit, right? I have this really bad habit of when I'm working from home, I'll open the fridge every few minutes. Do you guys do that?
Okay. The go-to place.
Right, it's a hot place. It's hot. It's hot. You gotta cool off.
No. To quit this is not. It's not easy for me. So I mean, I still do that. I mean, not every 5 minutes. I'm super exaggerating, but I do that quite frequently. So what I do now is that I stuff my fridge with fruits and I don't put chocolates there. I don't put ice cream there. I just put stuff that it's okay to snack. It's cool, right?
Good snacks, sir.
Yeah. So what you do is you make the bad habits of bad snacking difficult. So what you can apply to this, for example, like we have a TV at home, but it's not in our living room. It's in our cupboard. So if we want to watch TV, you can, but you got to open the cupboard, take it out, put it on the counter, put it on the plug, look for a channel, and then here's the thing: after watching, you have to put it back in the cupboard. So after the second, third time, you're like, you know what? It's not worth it, right? Let's just do something else, So that's one of the things you can do. Like if you have a bad habit, for example, if you're trying to quit, let's say an app that you're trying to do, maybe it's social media, maybe it's some pornography thing that you have on your phone, like put a device on it, like you delete it, then like there are lots of software that prevents you from doing it, but you have to be honest with yourself. You have to like, because after some time, like you have that urge to do it, you're like, oh, this is too difficult, I forget about it. So that's what you want to get into. Yeah.
Right.
And also look at the missed opportunity from that time spent for addiction. Okay, let's take example, watching football or pornography. Okay, watching football first. Let's say one football match is 1.5 hours, yeah?
Yeah.
Imagine that 1.5 hours is every Sunday, yeah? Let's say 56 weeks times 1.5 hours. How many hours, hundreds of thousands of hours that is at your disposal for you to call your parents, for you to get a passive income, for you to read a book, pick up something new skills. Imagine how those thousands of hours that you can spend. Yeah, number one. And also certain bad habits addiction. Yeah, even let's say pornography. Maybe it's half an hour, but the actual is not half an hour. It's half an hour, and then whatever that the fake requirement that comes after that, you need more than half an hour. Now imagine every time you like, let's say somebody does every day times 365. How many thousand hours you actually wasted yourself onto? Yeah. So sometimes the moment is not. Let's say you like to someone who likes to buy lottery tickets. It's maybe 10 minutes job, but it's not 10 minutes. You gotta drive yourself to the shop, buy that, and drive yourself back. Yeah. So it's more than just 10 minutes or half an hour or 5 minutes. It's more than that. Yeah. Think of it. Quantify those wastage. Yeah. Then you see how much waste is all together.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, let's speak a bit about willpower. Yeah. So you imagine that behavior model which I spoke about. I'll try to flash it on our video, inshallah. So what if it doesn't go above the habit line? Can you force yourself to do a habit, or can you force yourself to quit a habit even though it's easy to do and you have high motivation? You know what I mean?
Yep.
Is that possible? So the answer is yes. You can like push through. Like you can like the willpower. You can squeeze yourself doing it, but you get very mentally exhausted. And it's not sustainable to do it in the long run. So that's the thing, right? If you are starting to quit something, you have to make it easy for you to quit. You can't pound yourself. That's the problem about us. Like if we rely too much on motivation alone, if we rely on our iman by ourselves, we are weak, yeah? And that's a problem. Like sometimes when we hear a lecture, we're like, yeah, I'm gonna quit this, like, you know? And then next day,
the iman boost.
Yeah, the iman boost. Then next day, we're like, next week, inshallah. So that's the thing, like this happens to me a lot when I'm buying books. Like I have this motivation, like, ooh, mashallah, this book is so cool. Okay, I'll buy this book, I'll buy this book. And then it just sits on my shelf and I read chapter 1 and the bookmark sort of just stays there for the next few years.
And then the next time you want books, your wife's you gotta finish this book first before you can get any new books, huh?
Yeah.
All these books need to be read first before you
Yeah, so the fundamental theme about this is this. Our motivation is fleeting. And this is in our deen, it's mentioned that as well. Our hearts are in the fingers of Ar-Rahman. If Allah wants to keep our hearts steadfast, He'll keep it steadfast, or not, we'll just go astray. So we can't really leave it to ourselves. What we want to do is increase our baseline of iman by our good deeds, slowly increase our knowledge, and eventually our motivation to do good deeds will increase and and motivation to sins will decrease. But while you're doing that, while you're trying to quit, don't expose yourself. Don't make it difficult for yourself. Find ways to make it easy for you. And this is when we speak about this episode, about all these different strategies to make it difficult and also to decrease your motivation. So all these different micro strategies, inshallah.
Like most of the points that we talk, like how Ibn Qayyim frame this is like these are more like internal barriers that's impacting your intellect, your intelligence, your mind, as well as your heart. But there's also physical barriers, external barriers that you can put in place to stop you from actually sinning. Yeah. So one of the things that they talk about is know what your triggers are. Like what triggers you to do something. So be sensitive of your senses. Yeah. Know like doing certain things. What sort of feeling it incites you? Like, okay, if I incite certain feelings, okay, this is, you know where it's heading to. Cut it off. Yeah. Time of day, for instance, late night. Yeah. In the afternoon, whatever, you know, that time of day, you take note of that. The people, for instance, you have some, we call it kaki, like where you meet up, you're only going to talk about certain rubbish only.
Your homies.
Your homies, yeah. So get rid of that rubbish by getting rid of that people, yeah. maybe if you need to meet them, don't meet them in one whole gang, because that you'll be overpowered. Maybe you meet them
True.
one by one, then it's easy to you get more control of the conversation. You can't change conversation of 7 people by just coming and telling you. It doesn't work like that. It's easier if you have one on a personal one-to-one conversation. So be sensitive of those changes in yourself. So that's where you can find those triggers and try to avoid those.
And those triggers can be as subtle as boredom in throughout the day. Let's say you're working from home, you just feel a bit, I kind of feel, okay, I'll just open social media. That's a simple trigger. Just browse and, oh, wait a minute, it's 1 hour. Like, okay, that happens, right? So the trigger can be boredom. So it's really about assessing yourself. What drives you to do that thing? And it can be anything,
Usually we can identify it by what did you do before you do the bad sin, the bad habit, just like smoking, right? After what did you do before you just get the cigarette? For me, before that, I think I ate, or I'm starting a conversation with a friend who is smoke as well. So that's some of the trigger we need to identify.
I like that. So those some triggers are activity related. So I have a friend, he's a practicing Muslim, but he likes to speak to ladies. He really likes it, and he's very smooth. And his triggers is gym time at the gym.
Okay.
Okay.
After every workout, he's gonna go. He's gonna try his luck with some
habit,
some people there. So he knows that. So he ends up going to a gym that only cops and police goes. So gym to work out, not to network. So it's a
okay. So he had it upon himself to change it.
Mashallah.
Barakallah fi.
Your environment has a... Sorry, go ahead, Rizal.
Yeah. I just wanted to put in a point about the motivation. Brother Faisal mentioned the motivation. Sometimes you find that you have high motivation and sometimes you have low motivation. And perhaps to go about it based on motivation itself, like it is not such a strong way, I guess. But what we can counter it with is that instead of focusing on specific goals, for example, focus more on the systems that you want to live by. For example, the systems that you have in your life.
Right.
For example, how Brother Faisal replaced all the snacks with fruits. That's an example of replacing it with a good system. So you still have these things, but you have a good system in place. So therefore, it's less likely that you veer off the path when you are feeling not so motivated, but you have that system in place.
That's one of the engineering control. Substitute, and then you eliminate, and then you... I know, PPE is the last one.
PPE meaning personal protective equipment.
Mashallah. So this is something as well, create an environment whereby your systems that you have in place lead you to do good habits and not bad habits, So and also on the effect of environment, I believe Brother Faisal was going to mention something about this as well before, right?
Oh, okay, yeah. So in the book Atomic Habits, there's a whole chapter dedicated to this, right? You can actually design your environment. And it's interesting to note that our religion as well has a lot of basis about how our environment shapes our behavior. And one of the best examples of this is a hadith in Al-Bukhari and Muslim about the man who murdered 99 people, right? So I think we spoke, I love this hadith. There's so many amazing lessons. But I'll try to keep it concise for our discussion, inshallah. But the important lesson I want to take from this is that this guy, so after he murdered 99 people, right? So he went to a righteous worshipper, right? Saying, okay, how can I repent? And then the guy was like, you killed 99 people, no way Allah's going to forgive you. So what did the guy do? The guy killed the guy. So the habit of killing became so easy for him that if you annoy him a bit, khalas, increase the kill
this
count.
This is perhaps a habit to him, right? Killing someone just because...
Today people are speaking about serial killers like Ted Bundy. They kill it's nothing compared to 99 or 100, This guy is seriously mass murderer on today's level, right?
Hyper serial killer.
Hyper serial killer.
Yeah.
So finally he went to a scholar. So this is an important point. He didn't give up. He's not like, you know what, the killer blood is in me. I killed a righteous guy. Forget about it. There's no hope. He didn't, right? He consulted somebody else. So that's important. Like when we relapse, just keep on trying. As what Shami is saying, right? The important thing is Allah. You remember that Allah will never stop to forgive you if you keep trying. So keep trying. This man who murdered 99 people, eventually 100, still consulted a scholar, a people of knowledge. So this shows you don't seek advice from any person, yeah? Even though a person might be righteous, maybe might not give the best advice for you. So this is one advice that I took from the hadith. But the interesting thing about the hadith is when he went to the scholar asked him, so you know what? There's nothing between you and Allah to prevent you from repentance. Oh, okay. I can now move one step forward. So that's the key. When you want to quit a bad habit, it's always about just moving one step ahead. But so the advice that he gave, I love the advice. He says, okay, this is an evil land. So you have to leave it and go to another town. Do not return to this land of yours because it's an evil land. So eventually the end of the hadith is this man went on the journey and he died halfway. And there's an interesting narration that the angels argued about this, right? And eventually Allah made the angels of mercy measure his distance closer to the destination town, and therefore he entered paradise. SubhanAllah, just being on the way to repentance, yeah, that's enough for you to earn the mercy of Allah. But the interesting point is this. The scholar advised him to go to the land, right? But did the scholar himself make the hijrah, the migration?
No.
He stayed. But he told him to go. Why? Because for him, that environment triggered him to do those bad deeds. But for the scholar, it doesn't trigger him. So it's different people, yeah? Like for some of us, we may be in, like Amir said, right? But by ourselves, that's when we have the tendency to do evil things. But for some people, with a group of friends, that's when they become the worst devils. So it's kind of like catching yourself. Oh, okay, I kind of see where, and so you have to like make that choice. It's difficult to move from one land to another, but this is what that person did. So the lesson is about self-awareness here. And also, like for us, like how do we take this? How do we understand this? Right? It's not about making drastic changes. So a lot of us we think about changing environment, right? But it's really about, like Amir saying, like break it down a little bit. That okay, I understand that this triggers me, and sometimes it's a bit of a trial and error. So that's one thing I learned about the book Power of Habit, and also this book Tiny Habits. Don't look at it as like the problem about us is like, for example, we make this New Year's resolution, right? I'm never going to smoke another cigarette ever again. If you do that, it's very painful for your mind, like, oh, never. You know what? This
Even
never
the body.
thing. Yeah, even the body. So you know what? This never thing, I think next week is okay. So, because it's very difficult, yeah? So you have to come up with systems, as what Reza is saying. Methodologies.
That's right. It's nice, like when you really want to substitute that time allocated for bad habit for something beneficial, useful, like what Brother Faisal did. In his fridge, there is the fruits instead of chocolates, yeah?
Yep.
Do something achievable, yeah? Do something achievable.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
Don't know, like, okay, I'm not gonna play video games until late night. I'm gonna memorize the Quran from today onwards. Okay, great.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's about it, yeah? No,
motherhood statements, they call it.
Motherhood statements, yeah?
Right?
Unachievable goals, yeah.
Yeah. There's no action plan, no house, right? Just like, ooh, I want this, right?
It's a faraway dream.
Yeah.
But
So
one
this
interesting point, right? That Brother Faisal mentioned as well, part of the hadith, that the effect of your environment is very important. And particularly, a subset of that is the effect of your companionship. As Rasulullah SAW mentioned in one of the hadith in Sunan Abi Dawud, which is a Hasan hadith, he mentioned that a man follows the religion of his friend. So each one should consider whom he makes his friend with. So this is profound. It's not only, it's particularly to do with, you will be influenced whether you like it or not by your close companion. So you don't want one day in the Akhirah, there is an ayah in the Quran in Surah Al-Furqan. It says, oh, woe to me. I wish I had not taken that one as a friend. This is what you don't want.
Yeah.
And that's something that's a stark warning from Allah, that your friend right now has a very big impact on you. So there's one thing that we can pay attention to. Perhaps because by having this companion, you are always influenced or drawn to certain bad habits or certain influences that you might not be aware of, but you're directly influenced by that, so this is something that one has to pay attention to, because this is a very big part of your life that leads you to do good things, good deeds, good habits, or bad deeds and bad habits.
And also like certain bad habit or certain ambition, the Sharia have already written mitigations to it. For instance, if you have issues with your sexual desires, then Sharia has suggested fasting, marriage. If you have issues with a tough heart, maybe reading the Quran is and contemplating on the meaning is a solution for you. If you like to lie, you like to gossip, you like to curse, then the Sharia tells you about controlling your speech. So there are certain addiction that the Sharia have given solutions. So it's just about us further finding those solutions. So there are that kind of solutions out there in the Sharia as well. So for us to look up into it, and those are usually specific topics that we can go and listen on our own.
Yeah, I know. I mean, you reminded me of something, a quote that somebody shared. The quote was very profound. It says that the more you lower your gaze, the prettier your wife becomes.
Oh,
wow! Think about that.
Yeah.
I think that's so profound. So, like the more beautiful ladies you look at, the more your desire is going outside of the realm of halal. That's the problem with us. So, a lot of us, we think that our desires are driven by like things like pornography and all this lewd imagery and so on. But the reality is, even movies, they don't choose they always select right good-looking people, right?
Yeah.
So you don't realize it subconsciously plants the idea in your head. The more you look at all these good-looking people, these macho guys, these pretty ladies, and you look at your wife, and it paints that picture. So sometimes you don't realize that that's the habit that leads us to do haram, but we don't see it that way. We're like, it's pretty harmless. Oh no, this is dangerous stuff.
Subhanallah.
Subhanallah.
There's another. Sorry.
With in relations to what Brother Faisal has said, I wish to quote another saying by Ibn Taymiyyah. Sorry, quoting a lot from him today. But he said something really quite profound. He said, a person may commit zina, but not overcome by passion and longing, which is in Arabic is called al-ishq. Okay, and vice versa. Zina with the private parts is worse than committing a minor sin, such as looking or kissing, but willfully persevering upon ishq or desire, longing, or passion, right? And the things that accompany that, such as looking at women a lot, could be worse than committing zina once. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala,
got it. MashaAllah.
Yeah, and then he said, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala removes bad thoughts and crude behavior. Crude behavior here means illegal sexual activities from those who are sincere to Allah. And then he, with relations to Surah Yusuf, he said, Yusuf was, of course, one of the sincere worshippers of Allah. He worshipped him alone without associating any partners with him. And he placed his trust in Allah and sought aid from him alone. So that is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave him the courage and strength to pull away from the women. Even though he wanted, if not by Allah's mercy, he would have, done what, the deed, But subhanAllah, I just think this is, especially that part where he said that, the ishq, doing that, persevering upon the ishq is worse than committing zina once. So subhanAllah, it's really something to think about,
Yeah, that's really deep. So yeah, speaking about environment and friends, I just want to add something. So I found this a very interesting point. Like back in the Vietnam War, they found out that the American soldiers, many of them were addicted to heroin. And to the point where I think 1 in 5 American soldiers at least tried it. 1 in 5, like 20%. That's a lot. And a lot of them were addicted to it. Like they were becoming habitual users of I can't remember, I think it was heroin. Was it cocaine? If you guys know this story.
Was that like something that was prescribed to them to make them last longer or to make them, stronger in battle? Is that something to do with it? I'm not sure.
Was prescribed to them, like cigarettes.
Yeah, cigarettes were.
Sure.
But what they were addicted to for that one was heroin or cocaine. I can't remember, but okay, let's just for this discussion, let's call it heroin. I could be mistaken, but
because it was grown in Vietnam, right?
That's right. Okay, it was very easily available.
Right.
So during the war, they were very concerned about the soldiers. Like they would come back to America and become junkies. But what one fascinating thing happened is after the war, 95% of them never did heroin again.
Okay.
Wow.
So
Inshallah.
so they tried to discover like what's going on. Like it turns out that why they were so addicted to it was because number one, a lot of people were doing it. It was readily available, and they used it as a means of socializing with other people. And the stress of war was there, and they were far away from their family members. All these anxiety factors pushed them into doing heroin on a consistent basis. But once they got back home with their families, without those triggers, without those friends, without the stress of war, no heroin. Wow.
Okay.
Amazing. And I think this is mind-blowing because at the time, a lot of sociologists were blown away because they thought that this thing is highly addictive, that once you're hooked onto it, there's no way of quitting. It turns out that physical addiction played no role whatsoever in triggering back these things. It's all to do with social and habitual factors. I think that's really mind-blowing. And subhanAllah, when you think about us, like how do we quit?
It reminds me of a friend.
Ah.
A friend that he was addicted with methamphetamine. I think he used it since since school.
Wow.
It was so bad that he always been caught by the. I think he was caught by police, but he managed to get out, and to the point that he was like this insane guy. He's like junkie. If you meet him, you know this guy is a junkie. But then one day I don't know, is it his parents or himself? He moved himself out of his hometown. It was in Miri.
Right.
He moved to KL, and then he registered himself to a rehab. So for several years, I think it's 2-3 years, he was free from drugs. And when he was good, he was how to say, he doesn't use any of the drugs anymore. And the family asked him to go back. He don't want, because he knows after he cured, he don't want to go back to his hometown. So now alhamdulillah, he's a Quran teacher.
Wow.
Mashallah.
It's like
Allahu Akbar.
twist. I think Reza knows him.
Wow.
Yeah.
Give me it should be a motivation for other people.
SubhanAllah. So yeah, friends are important. So subhanAllah, that's really amazing. So friends are important. So I want to break it down for us. How can we practice this, right? Friends are important when it comes to about habits for 3 different reasons, that the way I see it. Number one is that bad company pulls you back to the bad habits, like Aziz is saying, right? Because you know that bad company is there. That's what compels you. And I think I heard somebody mention this before, that he's struggling to quit music, but he just can't, because every time he just pulls him back there. And also factor number 2 is the lack of friends brings you that feeling of loneliness. When you don't have the good companions, it draws you back towards those old habits. And number 3 is that if you have friends who are trying to quit, that's a huge bonus on your side. You got a compatriot now, you got a companion, right? So all these things actually helped me a lot in my journey to quitting certain things. So for example, I want to share something, about having lack of good companions. I remember like there were 2 of my friends. There was 3 friends. We were all smokers together, and 2 of them quit. After like 1 or 2 months, they quit, and I'm like, I'm so amazed. I'm like super jealous. Like, how can you do this? I considered it impossible for me back then. Like, whoa, 1 month. This is different level, bro. Tell me. So they were telling me, they use this drug, this pill, which sort of it's like a neurological drug that inhibits your addiction receptors. So I'm like, wow. But in my heart, like, I don't think it works for me. It's okay. And I tried it, and mashallah, alhamdulillah, it worked. So yeah, that's a different story. So it was very, very effective. But a couple of months down the line, they started back. So like, wait, what's going on? Like you guys inspired me, and now you guys, what's going on, right? So 2 things I realized. Number 1, their why, their intention was not very clear. One of them openly said that, it's nothing really that bad. I mean, it's a waste of money. It smells bad. Doesn't look that nice. Well, you know, if you don't want to quit, it's not your choice. So his motivation to quit wasn't very strong. My motivation to quit was strong. I said in part 1, right? Because I felt like it doesn't look good for somebody who has a beard, who's trying to practice religion, is smoking. Oh man, I'm destroying the religion. What am I doing? Like, he's useless guy, right? So the motivation was like really, I felt really bad about myself. So that's number 1. Number 2, these guys, they quit smoking, but they keep hanging out with other friends who were smoking. So for a few months, they were like, nah, it's okay, I quit. Second day, they're like, nah, it's okay, I quit. Third day, I was like, it's okay, I quit. But just one.
One wouldn't hurt.
Yeah.
And his friends like, come on, man.
Come on, man.
You know
Yeah.
it is.
For all time's sake.
Yeah, it's like, just one.
It's like advertisement, right?
Right.
It's just keep coming, and then
Right, it
take my
keeps
money.
ringing down your ear. Yeah, so subhanallah, like, so that's where it failed for them. So like I want to share. So I mentioned in part 1, I have a friend, Bob, I call him, but not his real name, of course. So Bob and I, we're on this journey together. We quit smoking, we quit music, we started learning the deen together. So this is factor number 3. Good company really, really helps. And I remember during our first initial years of studying Islam, we found another friend. Let's call him Luke.
John.
Okay, John. Yeah, okay. All right, let's call him John, right? So
Sounds like a
John
gospel.
is slightly older than us. John is slightly older than us, and he started practicing like the sunnah before us. But yeah, he's still like he's still relatively new, but he doesn't smoke. So Bob and I always hang out with. We love staying in his company, but he doesn't smoke. So we're like, so when we go like have a coffee, we're like. Okay. But we kept on hanging out with him again. So we kind of got used to hanging out without smoking. So that eventually that trigger, like that desire sort of pulled away. So when you got used to hanging out for hours without smoking, you're like, hey, you know, it's not that bad. You know, like you kind of get used to it. So yeah, that really, really helped. And one thing that really that was really touching to me when we tried to quit smoking, right? So I remember the last jamming session that we had. So the band that we were in, 3 of us, we were people who started to practice Islam, but we were still like heavily into music. And Bob and I, we were into denial, like, no, I don't want to listen. That music's haram. No, don't tell me.
Were you a 3-piece band back then?
No, there were like 5 of us, but 3 of us were on this path of the deen.
Inshallah.
Right.
So
Bob, John, and Faisal, and the other one is
Jack, let's call him Jack.
Jack.
I already wrote a name in my script. So Jack was a bit more advanced. Yeah, he passed the denial stage. He knew that this was haram, but he was still kind of like, yeah, let's just jam a bit. You know, let's just get it out of my system once in a while.
Shahwa.
Yeah, the shahwa part, exactly. So I remember that jamming session, we had a blast. Like it wasn't like the normal jamming session. Like we did like not just the normal heavy metal stuff that we used to play, right? We went really crazy. Yeah? We played like 90s pop songs. We played like Green Day, Blink 182. Like we had a ball of a time, yeah. But don't want to remind myself. But anyway, after that jamming session, right, something happened. This friend of ours, Jack, he looked really depressed. Like he looked really sad. And so I spoke to him like, hey bro, what's going on? He said, yeah, you know, we shouldn't be doing this, man. Like we're trying to practice the deen and we're still playing music. I said, yeah, but that was fun, right? Yeah, it was. And then like you can tell like there was a huge sign of remorse in his face, you know. And that hurt my feelings. Like back then, I felt like, hey, what am I doing? Like I made my friend upset. Like I fulfill, we made ourselves happy, but now I made him upset. What kind of a friend is this? So because of that social kind of dissonance that I had, that emotional sort of upset that I made him, that made me like, oh crap. And that's when and since then, I didn't know it back then, but that was the last jamming session that we ever had. So subhanallah, like that social connection is powerful. Like because as human beings, like we don't want to keep people upset. So that religious part, yeah, it's one thing, but to let your friend down, somebody who's close to you, somebody that you like, that this is not right. So that really helped, you know. So having friends, good company to help you quit, it's a really powerful asset. But I also learned another tool. Getting friends who help you. You want to make sure you get friends who are committed. Yeah, I had a friend back in my uni, in my student days. His name is Kenny. That's his real name.
That's his real name lah.
So Kenny wasn't so serious. He was like he wanted to quit, but we did all sorts of strategies. Like, so, okay, we're gonna buy this one pack. don't smoke from outside. Yeah, we're just gonna put from inside. Okay, got it. Deal, bro. But then like secretly we buy, all these things. And then this guy wasn't so serious. So it's like, okay, tomorrow our KPI is don't smoke more than 4 sticks. Got it? Okay. And then one day is like, oh, can he smoke 5? I only smoke 3. Yeah, one more.
You got some allowance.
Yeah, I'm still winning, right? So it didn't work. Like that collaboration didn't work. So I realized that you kind of have to be careful about this friends thing. Yeah. So sometimes when you have this group of people trying to quit but they're not successful, you're like, oh, it's okay. He didn't succeed either. It's all right.
The best friendship is the friends is built on because of love of Allah. Yeah.
Yeah.
And if it's built upon love of Allah,
yes.
2 things needs to happen. Number 1, it has to be driven by a lot of advice, a lot of nasihat. To goodness, number 1, and the person who's on the receiving end takes heed of that nasihat, and two things have to happen. Yeah, so one part gives the nasihat, and the other part takes heed of it.
Yeah.
Because both sides have a very strong sense of why to please Allah, why you're living in this life as a test. Everyone, both sides have that goal in mind. So it is a very conducive environment to remind each other, and the other person remind the other person. So that's a very, very good, the best companionship, basically.
Yeah, and one thing I'm really grateful for, talking about good companions, is my wife. So she really helped me quit this. And so I remember there was one time I relapsed a bit. I went back into music. I still played with a band, and she was like, I thought you're stronger than that. So, that cuts like a knife. But it was also very powerful because that showed that was also very, very, very touching to me, because she had a high regard for me. Yeah, like I thought you were stronger than that. So that reinforced that identity which Reza talked about in the first part, right? So you want to be somebody who's strong. You don't want to be somebody who falls back. So then I started. Oh, okay. Then I told my bandmates, sorry guys, you're gonna perform without me in this one. Why? But yeah, that's another story. But anyway,
Mashallah.
One thing I just want to one strategy is about having a carrot and stick approach. Yeah, like if you fall short of and you give in to succumb to your temptation, whims, desire, make sure you put a penalty to yourself. Yeah, and there's some people in the past they do this, like the companions.
Oh, okay.
If they fall, do something bad, they say, I will give sedekah to this person. I will fast on certain days.
Okay.
And sometimes they make an oath, say, I will never do this. So if they break it, they fast. So they put some penalty, some punishment for themselves. And it works the other way as well. Put some reward. Like let's say you manage to not eat healthy for the whole week, then maybe have a cake, yeah. Or you have not watched movies for certain times, yeah.
Right.
Maybe get yourself a nice watch, something like that, yeah. Or go for family, yeah. So just to make yourself relax and not too tight, yeah.
I like the point also. It's an iterative process. I remember there was one of the righteous predecessors. He said that he made an oath. Every time that I'm going to backbite someone, speak negatively about someone, I'm going to fast. But I found that I was fasting every day. So it didn't really work. So Subhanallah. So he improvised. So he said, okay, so from now on, whenever I backbite someone, I'm going to give charity of a certain amount. I can't remember, but it was a huge amount. I think it was like a few dirhams, or I can't remember, but it was a lot. So then he realized that after a week, oh man, I cannot live like this. I cannot. So that's very interesting. Like he had that self-awareness, because that's the problem with us. We sometimes we set KPI for ourselves, but we cheat ourselves around it. You know, the moving goalpost thing. I will do this by Saturday. And then by Saturday is like, but today I'm busy. So
next week.
Wednesday. So you have to be really, really disciplined to fulfill that. Right?
Mashallah.
Subhanallah.
Mashallah. It also reminds me of that graph, right? The motivation and difficulty graph. That's something that you're making something very difficult, so then you are not prone to doing that in the future.
Yeah.
Mashallah.
Speaking about one point that you said, right, Reza, about the how, right? So instead of making motherhood statements like, okay, this is what happens at New Year resolutions, always happens like this. This year I'm gonna lose 10 kilos, right? How are you gonna do that? I'll figure it out. Come on, man. Come on, man. All right, this year I'm going to memorize one juz. All right. How do you plan to do that? Yeah, memorize. Huh? Come on, man. You're not gonna do that. Come on, man. No, it's not going to work. You have to have a system. So that's the thing, right? You have to have this thing. So this is another quick advice on how to quit bad habits. You have this gradualism, step by step, and have a strategy about it. So for example, I just want to take myself back and like the example that we spoke about in part 1, right? 15 years ago, I was a smoker, addicted to music, video games, movies, and all these unhealthy lifestyle habits. But, it seems like, oh, this guy quit everything. But it wasn't like a 180-degree turn. Right? It was a gradual thing. I quit one thing at a time. And even that one thing, it took a long, long process. People might look at me today and oh, this is a different level. No. It's not different level. It's a process, yeah? So don't feel like you're stuck in this rut. Like you have to try and come up with systems. Because the Prophet ﷺ says that the most beloved deeds to Allah are those done consistently, even if they are small. So try to... So how do you want to do this? Now, for example, when it comes to good deeds, like one of the best advice that I read from the book Tiny Habits and Atomic Habits is to make it easy, right? So if you want to start a habit, like for example, like if you want to start something, can you shrink it to 2 minutes or not? Because your brain knows 2 minutes is so easy, right? So like if you're saying like, I want to memorize Quran, 30 juz. Oh my God, I'm not going to start. Right? But can you do 2 minutes or not? Just 2 minutes after. What's 2 minutes going to do?
per day.
Like one ayah a day.
Yeah.
Something like this.
Yeah, so like a trigger, right? Like, okay, maybe after Dhuhr, I'll spend 2 minutes. What's 2 minutes going to do? It's okay. Just do it. Just do 2 minutes. And by the way,
you
just
say something very nice. You say like strength is obtained through gradual process.
Gradual process.
That's why a fire cutter able to carry big loads because every day he carry wood.
Yeah,
But
correct.
unable to carry anything because he never carries any wood throughout his life.
To put it into context,
nice.
how you want to go to the gym, you start off small, right? And then
Of course.
after the second month, you realize you can bench press.
Right. Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
so that's the thing, right? If you want to start reading, for example, don't say I'm gonna start reading this super thick book like everything. Just take around 1 page a day. Bro, what's 1 page gonna do? Just do it, man. Like just keep it consistent. And then after a while, you can ramp yourself up. Quran, right? Start with half a page a day. Come on, half a page. Come on. That's so easy, right? Just start like, what's half a page gonna do? Don't overthink it, right? Just do it. So so that's about good deeds. Now, how about when it comes to bad deeds? So this is a strategy that I want to share. What you want to do is you want to try and space out the frequency of you committing those bad deeds. So what you want to do is, now, see, when you tell your brain you want to quit, right? It's very taxing, it's very painful, it's very stressful, and it gives you anxiety. If you say, I'm never going to smoke again, it's like, but I'm going to start next week. So because it's very painful for you to cross that barrier. So what you want to do is, you want to ease yourself to the transition of things. So if you know you're habitually always opening social media, you want to try and space it out in such a way that you try to strategically place blocks of time throughout the day. So for example, right, I call this scheduled relapse or strategic procrastination. So for those of you in the oil and gas, you can call this planned downtime. You know what I mean?
Okay.
Planned turnaround. So basically, right, for those of you who are not geeky engineers like us, so planned downtime is basically like you plan in the time of a year where you down your whole plant, you do your maintenance, you do your inspection, you have no production, and then you go back up again. So sort of you apply that same concept for yourself. So this is how a lot of fitness instructors, they advise on how you integrate cheat meals into your diets. So what you'll do is throughout your week, right? Maybe you choose Saturday lunch. That will be my so-called cheat meal. But here's the thing, right? You don't call it cheat meal. You know why? Because if you call it cheat meal, you're already, I'm cheating myself. I'm a liar, like I'm a useless guy, So you have this identity crisis now. So what you want to do is they call it refeed meals or reward meals, right? So reward meals is fantastic. Why? Because it's like, after a whole week of hard work, I reward myself by awesome lunch on Saturday. So this is why this is powerful, because throughout the week, right, when you have the urge to eat unhealthy, you're like, Saturday, man. So you see a McDonald's ad, or you see this pizza ad, you're like, I feel like having that. That's gonna be on my Saturday menu. You know what I mean? So I find this very useful. If let's say you want to quit a bad habit like social media, let's say you're browsing every few minutes. So what you want to do is you want to set a time like, okay, I'll only check Facebook maybe after dinner for 30 minutes. So whenever you feel that urge, you're like, After dinner. It's okay. After dinner, I'm gonna have a
Got
ball
that
of a time.
time.
Yeah. So you see, it's less taxing on your brain. If you're like, don't do it. Come on.
Yeah.
Like it's very like, then you're gonna feel exhausted, right? So for example, if it's Netflix, if you're watching like 2-3 hours a day, just tell yourself, you know what? Wednesdays and Saturdays, maybe, Wednesdays and Sundays. So it becomes less painful than that because you have that, you can look forward to that, right? And then also you try to follow that up with asking Allah to help you. So, Ya Allah, I'm still doing this. I need your help. This is the best I can do. This is a process. And I seek your help in helping me because I can't do this by myself, but I'm scheduling it. So it sounds like you're kind of going to this dissonance, right? So after some time, you kind of get used to it. Like, so for example, like for me, when I keep on procrastinating these deeds, I realize that, hey, you know what, my life, I've gone on for so long. I don't mind just going another day. It's okay. I mean, like you kind of get used to it. So I want to share something about my relationship with video games. Now I'm going to tell you two things that seem totally contradictory to each other. Are you ready?
Okay.
Yep.
Let's have it.
Right. So number one, I have a confession to make. I love video games. I really enjoy playing it. In fact, until today, I still kind of like, I actually really, really enjoy it. So that's fact number one. Fact number two, I haven't played video games for 4 years, maybe even 5.
Wow.
That makes no sense. So in other words, I've actually quit playing video games. Now, how did I do it? I kind of use this strategy of scheduled procrastination. So here's the thing, right? About video games, right? In terms of Sharia, you can't say it's haram per se, There are a lot of elements of video games which are haram. Like you have things like shirk, you have magic, and you have gambling, like in this thing called microtransactions, right? I think you've heard that before. You have things like zina.
Image,
Zina images.
Image, the music.
How realistic the ladies look these days, right? So I mean, there's some elements which are haram, but there are also games which have very, very neutral elements, right? And if you switch off the music, and there's basically no more haram in it, right? What, Pac-Man,
FIFA.
Tetris, FIFA, there you go, right? Even Call of Duty, Halo, like where's the haram in that, right? So you see, when it comes to video game, haram just ain't gonna cut it, man. You need something else to motivate you to quit, right? So here's the thing. Here's what motivated me to quit. Now, I was a hardcore gamer, but I used to spend a lot of time on video games. I knew this. You see, the thing about me is I don't play the quick games like Candy Crush or Space Invaders or Pac-Man. I used to play like epic long-term games with campaigns and all this, right? It takes dozens, hundreds of hours of games. So I know that, I can't. No, 10 minutes, 15 minutes ain't gonna cut it, man. I need like 1 hour. So you see, I made it difficult for me already, so that I know it's if I want satisfaction from that gaming session, I need time to do it. So I already put a barrier on that. So early in my career, I would still play video games at night, but I kind of get like 4 hours of sleep per night. It's not so good. When I get to my 3 series, I realize that sleeping 4 hours a day turns you into a zombie. Okay, I learned the hard way now. so it's not about Sharia, it's about life now. It's not healthy at all. It's not productive. So what I do is I plan to play video games only on weekends. So I tell my wife this before we had our child. So I told her like, okay, you know what? After I do my chores, the groceries, after this thing, Saturday 1 p.m. to 4 p.m., I'm going to play games. And she's like, what? Like, yeah, trust me on this. So she gave me a face. Now, it's interesting, right? I used to do this, but as time went by, right? A lot of weekends you get busy, right? Business travels, you go, you have courses. We used to have a lot of courses in Miri. You go offshore and so on. So I got less and less, attached to that. And eventually I realized that there were many weekends I didn't play games. I had a lot of games on my hard drive. I'm not going to lie. But I never play any of them. I keep procrastinating. And I used to do that even in my games. I used to know like PUBG and Mario and Sonic, but I never played them. They were just on my phone. And I can't.
Mario.
10 minutes.
Yeah, no time.
It's not gonna cut it, man. Okay. Weekend. I'm gonna nail you, boy. But I didn't.
And then when it comes to the weekend, suddenly you have something else to do, and then
right, exactly. So
I have
what helped
similar
me quit.
experience on games because I like games, but my games are always football games. But eventually I managed to confine it to only when I meet up with my cousins or my brothers are gonna play games. And then what happened was that
that's good.
when we meet up together, like especially my brothers and my cousins, so especially my cousins, with the bigger family you meet up,
Right.
we usually meet up in the span of 2 hours or 3 hours, Then one day I play game. Then my mom came to me like, "Are you sure you wanna play game? You haven't spoke to your auntie for 1 year." You really gonna
Ah.
8 hours is gonna use just to
But
You're not gonna ask your grandmother how is she feeling? Kind of true, yeah. I've not seen these people for 1 year, and I'm here playing with all my cousins who are almost every single day through WhatsApp, and trash talking each other on FIFA. Yeah? It's not gonna cut. And then all our kids are like at the side, like telling, Dad, can I use your phone to play games? No, games is bad. Yeah, don't watch it. Well, it doesn't cut. Yeah.
That's really good.
You can be addicted to it. Yeah, don't play games. Yeah. Just that your dads all need some me time together. Yeah. Doesn't shine any good example to the younger generation. Yeah.
Yeah, subhanallah. And that's kind of how I quit movies as well. Actually, quitting movies was very difficult for me. It was much more difficult than quitting games. I really enjoyed movies, by the way. The thing about me is I enjoy movies. I don't watch blockbusters. I like to watch art house, indie, like Oscar-winning stuff. I enjoy it for the art of it. The storytelling, the visuals, the audio, the writing, the characters. So because of that, the script. Oh man, that's why it's so difficult for me to let go. So I would watch these movies that people don't watch. So that's why it's difficult for me to quit. Like, for example, I know other people, they kind of used to like watching like chick flicks. So like they didn't have a strong attachment to it. But for me, it's like a very, like, it was very strong. So I limited myself. So one thing is my wife, she was determined to quit movies. She was so used to watch movies. So so number one is that we kind of first like we only schedule to watch like maybe once every month, and we watch like family stuff, maybe Pixar stuff, just admitting what we used to do here. But but yeah, I mean, after a while she stopped completely. So mashallah, and she was very, very, very good in this. So because she was like this, I never watch movies when I'm with her. So because of that, I only limited my movies when I was go on business travels, and I would watch movies on the plane. I think she doesn't know this, but,
she does now.
She does now. and
that's
also,
in the past, inshallah.
Yeah, that's in the past. Right? And I used to watch movies when I go offshore. Oh, offshore guys, they got stocks of stuff, right? So she doesn't know this. So yeah, I mean, but yeah, it didn't happen very frequently. So because when you detach yourself from a habit for so long, you realize that it's not that difficult to quit. So but still, my attachment to it was so strong. So then I was like, okay, I had stages. So stage number one was I only watch like high rated movies, like on IMDb. If it's like certain rating, then I'll go watch it. And then second stage was like I only watch Marvel movies and Christopher Nolan movies. That's it. Like
it gets smaller and smaller.
Right? Just the cream de la cream and Oscar winners, right? Oh, by the time they win Oscars, it's not in the cinemas anyway. Alhamdulillah, like and then alhamdulillah, now I'm quit. I've quit. Like I think last year I watched like one movie. I think that's it. So
right.
And even that I like did a few sessions, but subhanallah, it took time for me. So I think that's a thing. Like realize it's a process, and try to have these strategies when you go into it. Right, gradual steps.
Baby steps.
And just to share about my experience on movies, I was also something like that, like gradual decreasing of movies. Like would watch it once in a while, but I remember this one particular movie that really made me stop movies. There was a scene, it's a very repulsive scene because there was the adhan playing in the background, but there is a romantic scene at the same time. So subhanallah, this thing is so repulsive to me that I told myself, never, no more movies for me. That was something that, subhanallah. So I guess when we talk about, when we gradually drop off the sins, this is a good habit, but sometimes it takes just one pivotal moment that makes you think that, okay, this is just not the right thing to do, and then boom, like Brother Faisal had in his jamming session, right? The final jamming session.
Oh, the nail in the coffin.
Pivotal moment, the final nail in the coffin.
Final
subhanallah.
Final supper.
Okay, so mashallah, barakallahu fikum. I think we covered so much good strategies that we can inshallah try to implement in our lives as practical tips for us to start to leave off the bad habits and start to develop the good habits. And I guess we can conclude all our points now, and I just wanted to go one round with the brothers to get the final conclusion. So firstly, we'd like to invite Brother Aziz. if any conclusions that you may have, inshallah. Tafaddal, akhi.
Okay. Yeah, I think I have. So, but breaking bad habits, it's a journey, right? It's not something you can do cold turkey. So the first thing you need to do is, I think the best thing is to identify the bad habits and what are the changes you want to make. You need to explore, need to seek knowledge. What my experience is, when I stop smoking, I need to have the information why I addicted to the smoke. Why is it you have this the feel good after you have that one smoke, right? If you need to know why you are addicted, why you have this habit, then you know how to break it. So I think it does to other bad habit as well, like social media. Why is it bad? And you need to know what are the social media doing in their part. Why are we so addicted to it, right?
Yeah.
So we need to explore, we need to seek knowledge, we need to know what is good, what is bad, and it is a continuous process, I think. And up until now, I'm still struggling with my social media, and I have a app block for my social media.
Oh, okay. Mashallah.
And even people, first I set my social media usage for 2 hours, and then I lower it now to 1 hour, and I hope that I can lower it to 30 minutes per day. And inshallah, just pray for me, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Okay, that's all.
May Allah make it easy for you.
Yeah.
I mean,
Barakallah feek. Okay, so next up, we've got Brother Amir. You want to share final thoughts on your on this particular topic?
Okay, maybe just a short one, yeah. So I'll just bring an advice by Shaykh Abdullah Al-Bukhari when people ask him, but how's the best way for you to avoid sin, to overcome sin and your desires to sin, yeah? So he bring forward an ayah from Surah Al-Ankabut verse 69, which in translation means, as for those who strive hard in our cause, we will surely guide them to our path. So he brought 5 points from just this simple ayah, and those 5 points are so relevant in us fighting, overcoming our bad habits, our negative habits, and our addiction. So number one is that the reality of sin is that it is never easy to overcome. For you to overcome, you need a lot of perseverance and a strong heart will. That's number one, the reality of sins. Number two, the reality of sins is you will only successfully overcome it through the guidance of Allah. But Allah's guidance is also achieved through actions. So through actions and dua, which are the actions of tawakkul, Allah will grant you those guidance. So those actions is something that you need to find. You need to gain to know how. And as how we mentioned earlier, the scholars mentioned one of the best cure to find the two origins of sin, which are shubhat and shahwat. So to overcome, the best barrier towards shubhat is seeking religious knowledge, and the best barrier against shahwat is amal salih, pious deeds. Yeah, that's the second point. The third point is, even though this is a difficult path for you to overcome sins, but Allah promised that whoever who are sincere and whoever strive for Allah's sake, Allah will grant them victory to overcome it. Definitely will grant. It's a promise from Allah. That's the third point. The fourth point is never give up. Never give up, even if you are successful, even if you're not successful to overcome addiction at every single time, or even if you lapse after successfully overcoming for a long period of time, suddenly you lapse. Never give up. Follow those bad deeds with a good deeds. Yeah, never give up. That's why it's called mujahadah, means striving. You will fall and pick yourself up again. Yeah, and finally, the command to mujahadah, to strive, is a command from Allah, and for every one of us to attain closeness to Allah is only by fulfilling His command. And this is the command of Allah, to be mujahadah, to strive for His sake. Yeah? So that 5 points coming from this ayah, Al-Ankabut 69, makes up a lot of the critical fundamental pillars, elements of overcoming sin, overcoming your nafs, to overcome bad habits, addiction, and so on. Yeah, that's all I have.
MashaAllah. It's a great reflection on the surah, the ayah 69 of Al-Ankabut. So perhaps we can go back home and perhaps reflect on this ayah further and to see it from this point of view, inshallah. So barakallah fikum. Next up, Brother Faisal.
Okay, inshallah. So one thing just to remind what we said in the first part of this discussion is to always put your trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that everything that you abandon for His sake, He will definitely recompense and replace you with something better than that. So you pair this with what Amir has concluded. The more amal soleh you have, the more hope you have, the higher your iman, the higher your trust in Allah, the more you have this optimism that you'll definitely be recompensed. So as you are quitting these deeds, as you are doing this amal soleh, it increases your baseline and increases your optimism to quit and also to become a better person. So that's something that goes hand in hand. And then just to remind also that try to have that intention of da'wah, calling people to advising people based on your experience of the things that you've quit, like what we are doing right now in these episodes, right? So, like for example, you see in Alcoholics Anonymous in the United States, they have this thing whereby people who are addicted to alcohol, they meet anonymously, they share their struggles, they meet in circles, and it's really, really effective, yeah. And they have this 12-step plan. You can actually look it up, 12 steps in Alcoholics Anonymous. But the 12th plan number 12, is about sharing to others, reaching out to others who are struggling with alcoholism. And what's interesting is they found out that if you skip this step, all the 11 steps above tend to relapse. It's only when you start sharing that you actually make it a sustainable change to quit. And so when you start sharing with others, when you start giving da'wah, so for example, what we're sharing right now, the struggles. So in our heads, we think that, overcoming smoking. In our heads, shaitan plans in his idea is like, don't share it to people because now people are going to say, this bearded guy used to smoke. This guy is such a loser. This is what shaitan tries to play with your head, right? But you see, when you hear people share about their stories, you're more inspired because you realize that they are human beings, that they also have their weaknesses just like us, and they can overcome that. Maybe I have a chance. That's the kind of what da'wah is about, right? It's about inspiring people to move one step forward. If you start sharing with people your journey and your struggles, and with the niyyah, with the clear intention to help others, it does a few things. Number one, it reinforces the self-worth in society because you want to help others now, right? It creates that sense of accountability. And number two, because you are now telling people that this is me who used to do this and now I quit, it reinforces that identity. Remember that, Riza? Like that core identity. Yes. So you want that idea that, I used to be a former smoker. So keep on pounding that former smoker. Come on, I can't go back now. I've gone public, right?
Yes, that's the key word. You've gone public with it.
I've gone.
MashaAllah.
What the closet? There's a term for it, right? I can't remember. Basically, you revealed yourself, right? So there's a show on YouTube. It's called The Dean Show. I really love this show because it brings very relatable stories about people who used to be drug addicts, a lot of revert stories. And when you hear them tell these stories, you don't look down on them. You don't like, what is this guy doing like this? You realize that they're human beings, but mashallah, they made it past that journey, right? Yes. So that inspires us. So why don't we also try to do that? We have that intention that we want to quit because that picture, I want to inspire the youth. I want to have the big brother that me as a youth I didn't have. I want to be that coach to someone. I want to be that mentor to somebody who can help them overcome this. I want to tell them that, bro, I used to do that, and trust me, it's not worth it. Trust me, this thing is going to destroy you. I've gone through that, and because I love you, I don't want this to happen to you. And so if you plant that idea, subhanAllah, like the way you're going to look at these bad habits, it's going to be different now. So that's what I always remind myself, like whatever we try to quit in, just have that idea that inshallah one day I want to help others. So that's my conclusion.
MashaAllah. And also to add to that, when you inspire others, when others find inspiration that, okay, I can do it, this is something that you have it in you that for every person you guide to the truth, for every action that they do after that, inshallah, you will get the rewards for that as well. So think of it that way. It's an investment for you, as an amal jariyah for you. So that's a very important thing.
Sorry, two minor points. One
minor
point on
sure,
that.
No problem.
So for example, right, like it just crossed my mind. You know the hadith that we spoke about, the guy who murdered 99 people, right?
Yeah.
But we don't call him, he's not known as a serial killer anymore. He's known as somebody who repented to Allah and entered paradise. That's his legacy.
Mashallah. Yep.
SubhanAllah, think about it that way, right? Like, you know, there's one more hadith, very profound hadith in Sahih Muslim, where a woman admitted to committing zina, right? And then she begged to be repented and to be stoned. But the Prophet kept delaying it, right? Oh, wait for your child to be born and so on, right? And then when she was the command was to stone her, and then somebody said something negative about her, and then the Prophet ﷺ said, don't curse her, because she made a repentance that's so strong that it would suffice for 70 people of Medina, 70 companions in Medina at the time. Powerful, right? So we don't call her an adulterer. We call her the great repenter. Wow, that's so, you know, that's what sticks to you. That's the identity that eventually sticks with you in the end. That's the good ending, the husnul khatimah that we want, right? MashaAllah.
MashaAllah. And also imagine that we are all continuously getting inspiration from these people's stories, basically.
Yeah.
You know, they also, inshallah, have a share of the rewards. You know, if the ending is good, you know, and it's through the sunnah as well. MashaAllah, imagine that. This is a way of Allah giving rewards to His sincere slaves.
Yeah, that's the legacy they left behind. Now we know
the
that
legacy.
This is that now. SubhanAllah.
MashaAllah. Barakallah feekum. Great point, MashaAllah. Okay, so next up, Brother Shahmi. Tafaddal, akhi. Any interesting points to share?
Just a short one, inshallah. Just like how in our religion we have this hope and love for Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we also need to be aware of the other end of the spectrum, which is we must fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because in Allah shadidul iqab, because Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, His punishment is very severe. So it must go hand in hand. We hope and fear, we hope and love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, we hope for His mercy, but at the same time we must also fear His punishment, because one cannot, you know, sustain by itself. It has to go hand in hand to actually be a true believer of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And one of the ayat that comes to mind was, as mentioned by Brother Reza earlier on, Surah Furqan, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He said, Ara'aita man ittakhadha ilahahu hawa. Have you seen him who has taken as his ilah or God his own desires? So this is a really, you know, straightforward statement from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because it basically means that everyone who is infatuated by and, you know, or occupied with all the things, you know, other than worshipping Allah, they might fall into this category, right? So look at the end of the ayah. What did Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said? He said, "In hum illa kal an'am." Okay, and indeed they are just like cattle. You know why the scholars say, because cattle, they literally just walk around. They literally just, you know, feed themselves, and then they sleep, and then they give birth to the calves and whatnot, right? This is basically their life, and there's nothing else to it. But here's the most important point. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, "Bal hum adallu sabila." But indeed, they are farther astray from the path, even worse than the cattle. So how can we be worse than the cattle? Because if you look, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He has given us, the humans and the jinn, akal, the faculty to distinguish between right and wrong. As for the cattle, they are not given the faculty to differentiate between right and wrong, the haq and the batil. So this is why Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, He mentions this. You know, we those who, you know, all they care about is, just, live your life, YOLO, all these things, right? This is exactly what we see in social media today. This is my life, my choice, my right, my body. I can do whatever I want, YOLO, whatever, right? Yeah. So this leads to many bad habits. Netflix, porn addiction. Even some go, even further by addicted to zina or something like that. So these are all really dangerous. And inshallah, I'll end my conclusion with this. There's a athar from Ali radiallahu anhu. The Prophet ﷺ, he said, which is actually, when I heard this for the first time, I didn't really understand the meaning. But then when all this has been said, then it gets more clear. So the Prophet ﷺ, he said, "Sharibul khamri ka'abidi wathan." Right? Sharibul khamri ka'abidi wathan. The one who drinks alcohol is like the worshipper of idols. So the one who drinks alcohol, number one, alcohol, khamr is a great sin. You drink khamr. This is absolutely forbidden in Islam. But also khamr, alcohol, it makes one addicted, becomes addicted to it, right? So this can mirror other addictions as well, right? And subhanallah, the Prophet ﷺ, he equates the drinker of the khamr, the alcohol, to the idol worshipper. So subhanallah, because Ibn Taymiyyah, he explains this. He says, this person who loves other than Allah, in this case, he loves drinking khamr, which is something totally prohibited by Allah. Who loves other than Allah may love that thing more than he obeys Allah, to the extent that he may fight for the thing that he loves, like the believers fight in the way of Allah. Hence, if his love is obedient to him and a slave for him from one aspect, then it is more likely that he is obedient to it and a slave to it from another aspect. So think about that. All right, so that's all from me. Barakallahu fikum.
Fikum, barakallah. It reminds me actually, because as human beings, right, we are created, we have a void in ourselves that we must fill, either with the obedience of Allah, or if it's not the case for the disbelievers, it has to be filled with something else. Love of the dunya,
Exactly.
love of some person, love of wealth, right? So that then it becomes the ilah to that person, the one that the person worships, essentially. So that's essentially. Yeah.
Yes. One more immediate thing that comes to mind is that many teenagers, even some adults, they are obsessed with these K-pop groups, right? So this, subhanallah, and then they keep on saying that no, this is just a hobby, right? But no, this is not a hobby, because the poster is literally everywhere. It fills up your wall, the wall in your room, right? And your phone is literally the picture, subhanallah, all these women, the Korean women or Korean men, right? Subhanallah. So what does this say? Truly, it's nothing else than what Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has said in the ayat we just mentioned.
And interestingly, these people or these celebrities, oftentimes they also used to be called idols, right?
Oh yeah, yes, true.
Subhanallah. So that's it right there, right?
Yeah,
idols.
Just one more last thing, okay? Can I add one more last thing? Sorry, subhanallah.
Tafaddal.
Last week we were brave enough to go to a local bookstore, somewhere here in Shahlam, right? Okay, so we went there. So they were selling posters, right? They were selling posters for those who are acquainted with K-pop groups and whatnot. They know who GD is. GD is G-Dragon. G-Dragon is from I don't know what band he is in, but one of the famous ones, right? So he said, in that poster, there's a quote from him. So subhanallah, listen to this quote. He says, in the quote, it's written, it is a mistake to call me GD. Just call me GOD.
Subhanallah. Subhanallah.
Oh man.
And these kids, they will swallow this type of thing, right?
They think this thing is not serious, right? But this has a direct effect on your tawheed. So imagine.
Exactly. Yeah. That's exactly
that's disgusting, man.
That's disgusting. Seriously, that's
the very bad state that we are in. That we don't even realize that a lot of the things around us are taking us away from
subhanallah,
our Islam itself. Subhanallah.
Yeah. So that's it for me. So,
MashaAllah, barakallahu, great sharing, Aki. And from
you ended it on such a
bad taste in your mouth. I'm sorry.
Very repulsive, right?
Yeah, I'm sorry, but it's just.
But that also, as we discussed, can be a strong driver to leave all these things.
Oh yes,
it's true. Yeah, it's true.
That made me, really want to seek knowledge more, and I feel like I would love to share more about Islam and the mercy of Allah and how bad these sins are, the infatuations are. Yep. to my family members and acquaintances.
That actually it drives you to feel like, what can I do now to help these people
exactly.
who are following these things? Subhanallah.
Yeah,
Wow.
subhanallah.
Yep.
Subhanallah. May Allah protect us and our families from this great fitnah. I guess to summarize on all the brothers' points, particularly on Brother Amir and Brother Faisal before as well, when you want to change a particular bad habit that you've always been involved in, or it's become a big part of you, know that in the end, you do the effort, but the tawfiq is from Allah. So don't forget to ask Allah, make continual dua that Allah makes it easy for you to leave that habit. But at the same time, knowing that the tawfiq is from Allah, Allah actually wants to see us strive first. So that's quite important. Allah wants to essentially see the effort from us first. And as Amir mentioned in Surah Al-Ankabut, ayah 69, the first part of the ayah, وَالَّذِينَ جَاهَدُوا فِينَا. So this means, and those who strive in our cause. And what's the result? Allah says, لَنَهْدِيَنَّهُمْ سُبُلَنَا. We will certainly guide them to our paths. So, mashallah, it's a very good formula in that sense that when you want to achieve something good or when you leave something off that is bad, you have to strive first and make the effort first and ask from Allah. Inshallah, Allah will give you guidance and tawfiq to live off that thing. And that's essentially the formula that when we want to try to do good deeds or even leave bad deeds, remember this, strive first, keep at it, don't give up, ask Allah continuously, and Allah will inshallah show you the way. This is an amazing formula, I think, that we can implement in our lives. And as Brother Faisal mentioned before, that if you leave something for the sake of Allah, don't worry, because Allah will replace it with something better. So this gives such comfort for the heart that you're not doing that just to
deprive yourself.
Deprive yourself, exactly. Deprive yourself is so much uncomfortable feeling that you have to face, right? When you want to go in that path, but know that the thing that you will meet in the end or on the other side, mashallah, as I think the brothers here has experienced, when you leave off something for the sake of Allah, Allah replaces it with something much more, much more pleasurable and much more comforting to the heart. So this is something amazing that we invite everyone to be mindful of this and to hope only the good from Allah. Have good thoughts on Allah, that Allah will give you something way better than what you are leaving for His sake. So, mashallah, that's something amazing that I think I derive benefit from this discussion. And we hope that the viewers out there, you've also found benefit in our discussion as much as we had ourselves. And if you have any great sharing or any angles that we missed out in our discussion, do share it with us. We always love to hear your point of view, your take. And we also learn from this as well. And what we want to, inshallah, do in the end is that we learn from each other, as a practical, as a community to inshallah, remind ourselves to the good and leave the bad.
If you have some creative techniques as well that you want to share, we'd love to hear it.
Yep, exactly.
I'm pretty sure there are some people have some interesting hacks out there that we'd love to hear that. We still have stuff that we're struggling with.
Mashallah. We always love to hear this. So do share it on our social media pages or reach out in the messages if you wish to remain anonymous as well. So barakallahu fikum, brothers. I enjoyed that discussion and I hope you guys also enjoyed that and gain a lot of benefit from that. And may Allah make it easy for us to leave out all the bad habits and replace it with the good ones so that we have the ultimate success in this dunya and in the akhirah. Subhanakallahumma wa bihamdik, asyhadu an la ilaha illa anta astaghfiruka wa atubu ilaik. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Waalaikumsalam warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.
Thank you and jazakumullah khairan for tuning in. If you found benefit in this discussion, please do share and subscribe to our channel. And if you have any comments, feedback or suggestions, please do get in touch with us through our social media pages on YouTube, Facebook or Instagram. And we particularly would love to hear from you if you have any interesting tips that you have applied in your life on cultivating good habits and leaving the bad ones. Barakallahu fikum.